Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome everybody to this session on Uzbekistan. We're coming live to you from the Brussels Press Club. So my name is Marat Terterov. I work for the Energy Charter Treaty Secretariat here in Brussels. And it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this session on Uzbekistan. I'm going to moderate this session for the day, and I'll introduce the speakers shortly. We've got a very interesting set of speakers to address the topic of investment, new, exciting, groundbreaking, in fact, I think the term is, that you can use for investments in Uzbekistan. And I just want to take 1 second here to put this into a bit of a context. I myself have been following the development of Uzbekistan's economy and its kind of social and political development more broadly since the mid-1990s. And in fact, I even brought with me here, I don't know if people can see this on Zoom, this is a business and investment guide on Uzbekistan from the year 1996, which I obtained. It's called Uzbekistan's Top 500. And I obtained this book in the pre-internet era on my first visit to Uzbekistan in 1997. Very interesting times back then, to put it into context. If we talk about foreign investment, I think you could literally count the foreign investments in Uzbekistan back then on one hand. You know, there was Newmont Mining, I remember, from Canada, had a gold mine in Zarafshan. There was British American Tobacco with their Uzbat JV. There was a Korean automobile project in Osaka. Daewoo is a well-known brand of cars in Uzbekistan back then. Viktor Gen was the deputy prime minister responsible for the economy to Islam Karimov, and Abdullah Abdulkadirov was in charge of the privatization program. But today, look at the journey that this country has come. Today is really exciting times for us, followers of Uzbekistan, for the foreign investment community when it comes to Uzbekistan, because we are going to be talking today about a foreign direct investment, you know, over 1 billion euros in size. And this is an unbelievable journey, if you like, that the country's foreign direct investment experience has taken, because this is not only the largest foreign investment that we're talking about from European countries into Uzbekistan, but the largest FDI into Uzbekistan as a whole. Now, there's some very large projects in Uzbekistan today, particularly in the energy sector, you know, with other countries, you know, China, the UAE, some of the Gulf countries, but these are within the context of G2G, sort of government framework-driven investments. But here we're actually seeing a Dutch company, or a company registered in Rotterdam, Stone City Investments. And, you know, there's companies like Siemens involved. We're going to learn about that from a gentleman just to my left-hand side in a minute. So the short message, everybody, for people like me who have been following Uzbekistan for, you know, close to 25 years, these are very exciting times. These are very exciting times for the country's investment as well as energy sector. I'll bring in a little bit of discussion of the relevance of the Energy Charter Treaty to Uzbekistan as one of the, you can say, founding members of this treaty when it was developed and came into force in 1998. So we'll talk a little bit about that during the course of the event. But what I want to do now is just to hand over first to the ambassador of Uzbekistan to the European Union. And this is, of course, His Excellency Dilyor Hakimov, who is a very esteemed diplomat, has been, you know, in the diplomatic service of Uzbekistan for well over 20 years, and now for a good several years here in Brussels, doing a fantastic job. So I'd like to give the floor to him in order to greet you and say a few additional words. and then we'll continue with the discussion for today. So please, Ambassador Hakimov.
Yeah, Marat, thank you indeed. Thank you for such a warm welcome, and dear ladies and gentlemen here in the room, but not less importantly, online. It's really big pleasure and privilege to be here in the Brussels Press Club, and my first thanks goes to the Press Club itself for allowing us to organize this very important event, although the coronavirus is still being among us. Once again, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear Marat Turtanov, dear Alain Daniou, our friends from Siemens, and also all the excellencies, friends online, as I can see, from different parts of the world, including the European capitals. Few words. I'm not going to speak too long, and it's really time for business to speak. I would like today just to underline that was basically said on December 29th last year in a speech of our president, His Excellency Shavkat Mirziyoyev, in his address to the Oli Majlis, the Parliament of Uzbekistan, where he said that Uzbekistan's foreign policy interests are based primarily on the priorities of internal development. And this actually means an obvious shift toward the economization of the country's international cooperation and the strengthening of our economic pragmatism in external relations. And as it was rightly mentioned by Marat at the beginning, today's discussion is one of the most striking examples how Uzbekistan became open for the last few years, not only in political terms, but what is more maybe important in economic terms. This is real fruits of the seeing the President Mirziyoyev's policies being implemented. Because what we are going to discuss, ask the question, maybe learn the best practices, is how it's possible for the economy, which was, let's say, limited a few years back, before 2016, now to have such a big European investment being implemented in Uzbekistan. And without any further ado, I'm still open for any potential queries from your side, from the audience, online and in-house here. But I would like to pass the mic back to Mr. Tartarov, and I'm still here, and let us see what we can discuss. Thank you.
Ambassador, thank you very much for those very warm words of welcome and some context as well. Now, everybody, you've seen the program for today. The topic of our event today, and the reason why we're here really today, is to discuss, and in fact you can say to showcase, one particular investment agreement which has just come online between Uzbekistan and a company here in just 200 kilometers from us here, more or less, in Rotterdam, the Netherlands. And I think it's very important to start, let's say, highlighting the fact that this country, which, upon my first visit some 25 or so years ago, hosted just a handful of foreign investments in its very early kind of post-Soviet, economic evolution and initial privatization sort of program, economic reform program, is now really a country, I would say, widely open for quite significant, quite large-scale investments into a multitude of sectors, and certainly energy is one of the most attractive sectors. So we're going to showcase and discuss and evaluate one particular such project. And I think we will hopefully, get an idea that, we Europeans should no longer kind of be, let's say, hesitant when we think about Uzbekistan as an FDI destination, that it is a country where, it's not only other emerging markets, that their companies invest in countries like Uzbekistan, but it's rather, European companies and Europe as a kind of a source region for FDI into Uzbekistan can really take place. Now, of course, it's been a journey so far for Uzbekistan, and it's going to continue to be a journey. And in fact, the project which the gentleman I'm going to introduce him now, is going to present to us is an investment agreement for a period of 25 years. And I think it'll be a very significant, let's say, in some ways, well, benchmark, test case, to see how investment from Europe will evolve in the energy sector. And I think it's important to add that the Energy Charter Treaty, the organization, in essence, that I work for, is something that will greatly help investments such as this to be securitized in Uzbekistan, because the Energy Charter Treaty is an international agreement which provides legal security for investments in its member countries. And as I mentioned, Uzbekistan is one of the founding countries. Netherlands is also, of course, a member country. So this investment is protected under the Energy Charter Treaty. It'll be, I'm sure, protected under other aspects of, legal sort of provisions as well. And we will, in fact, hear about some of those from some of our speakers later in this session. But initially, I'd now like to invite Mr. Alain Denou, who is now the Director and CEO of Stone City Energy, which we will learn about right now, in fact, because this is the operational company, as far as I understand, that will be actually developing this very large, gas-fired power plant in Uzbekistan. So we're going to learn about this project now. And I should say that Alain Denou is, well, a person who I've come to know recently, and I think a wonderful professional who is not only I would say a great, engineer and technical expert in the field of power. He's worked for NG, for Siemens, here in Belgium, in this part of Europe for more than 2 decades, and has an MBA, by the way, so he's also the right education. But he's also someone that, understands the mentality of countries like Uzbekistan. He spent a lot of time in these countries, understands the people, the situation on the ground. So I think he's really an excellent person to develop this project. And now I'd like to invite him to tell us about Uzbekistan's journey, the continuation. Alain, please.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, I like to present you a little bit the project, but before that, I like to say I was in Uzbekistan the last time for a little bit more as 4 months, and I like to underline for everybody that it's really a nice country, and there the people are really friendly, and the only what I can say to people, or for tourism or entrepreneur, it's go there without prejudgment, go there and look to the people, look to the possibilities there. You will certainly find something will fit to your company or to your needs. Well, let's go to the project first. Okay, then we will do without. Well, the project as such. Yes, we will give them another chance. Well, the project in general is in the energy sector. Why in the energy sector? Because in Uzbekistan they have, due to the history, a lot of old. Yes, it's done. Oh, this one? No, only this one. No, it's this one. You have to. That's it. Then the challenge is a little bit to change old base. Thank you. To change the old base of production, not only with new, but also to answer to the growth. because Uzbekistan is a country where the population is growing quite a lot, but also the need per person is growing there. And it's really important, and when you discuss with the people there, they insist on that. They like to have social quietness, they like to have the people receiving the energy. It's for them really an important thing to grow not only the economical aspect of the country, but also the social aspect of the countries. And thereof, the goal was to build a power plant which is in efficiency the double of the old power plants. What does that mean? It means that with the same amount of gas, you will produce 2 times more electricity. Thereof, by the way, dividing by 2, the carbon effect per kilowatt hour you will have with this power plant. The project here is it's a power plant which about 1,560 megawatt net, which is, to give you an idea, a little bit more as 1 unit nuclear power plant in Europe. The efficiency is above 60%, even in really drastic conditions, because the region we will build the project, Surkhandarya, it's desert climate, which does mean a lot for a power plant. But even with that, we managed with our partner Siemens to answer those needs, the power and the efficiency. What is really important is also that this project is really the first private finance project. All of the projects before are more corporate finance project. Here it's really a private. And what we really can say about this project is that we had discussions with the government. People really understood the concern the investors had, and we could discuss, negotiate and sign an investment agreement which really protects the investor in the case of trouble, in the case of difference of deficiencies. Really, it's also one of the messages I like to bring here in Europe. Take the time to discuss with them, take the time to raise your concern, explain them why you think that something has to be changed. They are really ready to listen to you, and if they think it's, well, a benefit for both parties, they will go for that. Then do not hesitate to do this, do not hesitate to discuss with them. Then you see here a little bit, it's on the historical, it's the growth of the need, and this is the decision-making system. It's really, really easy. You discuss, when you discuss with the energy, you discuss with the Minister of Energy about what you like to do, how you like to do, what are the challenges there, and they decide on that. Then you discuss, you have the Minister of Finance, will we look if what you do is financially acceptable for the country, and then you have the third party with the Minister of Investment and Foreign Trade, which will look to you and say, how can we protect foreign investor, how can we work together with foreign investors into the country? And you do that parallel, you work with them, it's really clear. I will say, when I compare with other countries, even in Europe, it's easier. Then perhaps we, from time to time, we perhaps have to learn about this. But this is another matter. Then you see a little bit here the way they are organized, and it's, I will say, working really well. Then the project itself, like I told you, it's the highest power and efficiency in Central Asia region, and desert. This is really a challenge. We will use the highest technology, the latest machine of Siemens. Perhaps Siemens will speak a little bit about this machine. Surkhandarya, it's a critical position also for the grid, not only for export, not only for that, but also for balancing and managing the grid completely. It's an investment of about 1,200 million or 1 billion euros. It's in US here. 25 years, protected by the government, which is really important for investors. And I will say that the only point, it's please go there, look what it is, discuss with the people there. There are a lot of opportunities. They really also need people coming in, investing and believing in the growth of this country. And I can assure you, if you take it, you discuss with the people, you can make it.
Yes, Alain, thank you very much, but you're not going to get away that easily. I've got a few questions for you here. No, we will. We're going to come to Klaus Hockmeyer in just one second, but I think just one or two little things I want to ask you about this. Can you just give us an idea for people that maybe are not familiar with Uzbekistan's energy sector and power sector more broadly, but how this project fits into the existing grid development of Uzbekistan, the current capacity that they have for power production, as well as the context of gas and renewables, because of course Uzbekistan is developing some, you could also say, groundbreaking projects in the solar energy sphere as well as wind. So can you just give us some idea so that we understand the significance of this project sort of for Uzbekistan, for the region? So that's one question, please.
Well, it's a bright question. First of all, in the discussion I had there with the people, they are really, really aware about decarbonization. They really believe into that, but they are also really pragmatic people. They know that going today in a full renewable world, it's something which is a little bit utopic. And they have plans, that's for sure, because they discuss. I do not know what they are in detail, but they know that they like to go there, and they also like to have the economical and social growth, like I told you. Thereof, they need power today. They need to change the old base, which is with an efficiency of 28%, something this way, which is really, really, really bad. And they like to grow. They like to go with new power plants, everything above 60. And it means when you look in decarbonization, it is something when you can directly make an effect on that, because if you double the efficiency of your power plant, you decrease by 2 the production of carbon by the kilowatt hours you produce. This is really a first step. Secondly, you need to balance a grid. You cannot have a grid without having some big power plants ready to make what we call the power frequency management, because you can do what you want, but if at the end of the day you do not have 50 Hertz on your grid, then you will have a lot of trouble, certainly if you like to use computers, because the computers are really sensitive to frequency, and they are fully aware about that, and I think that they really think in a balanced way. They have vision, but also really pragmatic. And they are really going not only in a step by step, but from time to time, I think they are running. They are really going quick into that. But it's why I think it's really an amazing country, because they really like to go to achieve it. Secondly, when you think about the combined cycle, it's burning gas into the gas turbine. It means also that for the future, it's a good technology, because if you achieve to have enough renewable energy at a certain time, let's say more, let's imagine that you have made so big investment that you have more energy than what you consume. Then you can save a part of the energy there in different things, but one of that is producing hydrogen. And this hydrogen, you can use it back together with the back mixing, or even more and more, the future technology will allow to burn hydrogen directly in the gas turbine up to 100%. Then you will really be there at that moment into a decarbonized energy sector. And you will use the same type of power plants. You will make some changes around the burners and around the alimentation and things like that. But for the rest, the investment will remain the same there, and you will only make some add-on. And they are really, really aware about that, and it's thereof that they are using this technology.
So in a sense, we're taking advantage of Uzbekistan's abundance in natural gas, endowment of natural gas, as a means to decarbonize, as a means to foster greater efficiencies.
Yes.
And this is both through the...
Also, not only on a long future, but certainly on a today view. Because if you have to produce the energy, you do not have to produce the energy only for the future, but also today. And then this is really pragmatic. The gas is something that you have also to save. You have to manage that really good. They do that too, because it's not something which is infinite. That you have a certain volume, you have to use correctly this volume as good as possible. Yep. But they are really, I think that when you look to the mix of energy, they can give some lesson to other countries too, because they are really pragmatic in the way they do. It's not only by making big announcement, it's by doing. They are really doing.
In fact, I think this question will lead into Klaus Hockmeyer, who I see there, in Zoom. Fantastic to see you there. But I just want to ask Alain, and then perhaps to lead into Klaus, if that's okay, with this question. So, and this might sound a little bit silly, but why didn't we do this before? Why has this taken us so long with Uzbekistan to kind of come, in a sense, to our senses in some ways from a business perspective? Because we've always known that Uzbekistan's had the gas. So we've always known, I mean, the technologies have also been there. So why only sort of today do we come? I realize it's a complex agreement, it's a very large scale investment. We've not talked about the financing, how that's been structured. But nevertheless, it still surprises me a little bit that it's taken us this long, because we've been trying to decarbonize for some time, and our friends, the Europeans, are encouraging countries like Uzbekistan to go further down the road of energy transition. So that's perhaps also a question for Klaus to think about. But Alain, perhaps just a final thought before we go into Klaus.
Well, I do not know. I'm a poor technical. Then I think this is something for somebody other. There is somebody who likes to answer, perhaps. If you like to take this, to come to the stage.
Words about this, if you are interested.
Absolutely, and we're definitely going to have the Secretary General of the Energy Charter in 1 second. But let me just go to Klaus, and then we'll come to you. So Klaus Hockmeyer, I'd like to invite you now to talk a little bit about both your presentation, but also perhaps to reflect on some of the discussion that we've had so far with Alain. I realize Siemens is also involved in the project. So please, Klaus, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, and Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure for me to address you at this event on this important topic. I hope you don't leave all the difficult questions to me, but our project has been introduced, and I would like to talk briefly about our approach to the country, which is a new one, but also a very positive one. And secondly, maybe also some words on the investment climate. And before I forgot, I mean, the advantage of joining you on this internet conference is that you can check also when Uzbekistan joined the Energy Charter Secretariat, and I found that that was in 1991. So I can also say that your investment guide dating back from 96 already had that information, if it was a good investment guide. Yes, which I believe, yes. Okay, yes, that's it. Let me say some words on the project and involvement of Siemens Energy in Uzbekistan. So first of all, I'm very glad that we are about to embark on a journey which will hopefully end in a successful investment project, and that we have won the government of Uzbekistan as a strong partner, but also good companies such as Stone City Energy, and you already listened to them, as a good partner at the local level, because investments and projects at this scale cannot be undertaken without a similar support at the level on the ground or in the theater. So Siemens Energy, my company, is a leading energy company. We are based in Germany. We have 90,000 employees, and we're active in over 150 countries worldwide. We are, as a European company, we are certainly very committed to decarbonization and climate goals, such as the EU's goal to become climate neutral by 2050. And this is also something which guides our activities worldwide, even though we are acting and also active in countries which are outside of the European Union and which have a different approach to energy policy. I'm happy to announce that our CEO visited Uzbekistan about 2 weeks ago and signed a number of agreements, and Stone City Energy was also part of that. And we're happy to announce that we are going to embark on a number of projects. We have formed working groups in the area of power generation, and the project just presented as the leading project in this area. We are going to talk about the modernization of grids, the decarbonization of industrial sectors such as chemistry and metallurgical sectors, and also on the important field of renewable energy and hydrogen. And by this way, you will see it is a holistic approach where we will bring our experience as a technology provider. We are doing this in many countries where we're directly in conversation with the government and doing this on a long-term basis. Let's take, for an example, Egypt, where we built new gas-fired power plants. We are now working on renewable energy, but we transformed the state of Egypt within a record time of less than 3 years from an energy importer to an energy exporter. And the newest trend we are seeing there is the hydrogen economy with regard to exports in Europe. So I think we are taking a similar roadmap approach in Uzbekistan. We are starting from a consultational basis where we'll discuss the needs and also possible solutions with the Ministry of Energy and other stakeholders in the government, and we will see where this will take us. And the Surhadariya plant is, as already mentioned, is one of the first example. And if it will be successful, there will be considerable investment amounts also from our company, which will make this one of the biggest investment projects in Ukraine, but also in the wider region of Central Asia, and we are very excited about that. Let me say the lines between export and investments in the traditional sense are blurring, at least when it comes to large projects such as ours, because we are automatically and always also addressing questions such as local content, such as education and other, I would say, benefit or value added to the country or to the local communities. And this present case is no exception. We are also developing concepts for education and vocational training. We hope to link also this project to certain initiatives of Uzbekistan of cooperating with universities in Germany and Europe to also stimulate local production and employment in the region and to create a lasting effect also beyond the project. Then let me come to my second part briefly and talk about investment and investment security. And in a way, this is a bit of a home run for me because I used to work for the OECD in Paris in the investment directorate, and my job was to write investment reviews and reports of certain countries, mainly in the Middle East. So let me just make one message, and the message is that it is is very good if countries, including Uzbekistan, that they become members of treaties such as the Energy Charter, which are putting obligations, I would say, and to the country to in the area of investment security, because this is giving a very strong signaling effect to the outside world. Yeah, but this is only one part of the story, I should say, because at the same time, we as investors, I mean, we do not want any kind of escalation as is the worst case under these cases, but we are looking for a long-term, I would say, partnership approach, a joint approach, and in the best sense for both sides, in this case, the government, the public sector, and for us as a private company, for long-term partnership and a win-win situation for both sides. And for this, it is also important that Uzbekistan is kind of taking at the OECD you used to call this a whole of government approach, where you're also, I would say, advocating within the government to create a good investment climate, to foster dialogue with investors, and also to strengthen dialogue and also mediation between investors and your own administration. And I think last week I had the pleasure also and the honor to talk at the inauguration of a EU-Uzbekistan friendship group, and so I am very glad to see the ambassador again. And this, for me, is one of the clearest signs that Uzbekistan is taking this very good approach, you know, which is basically for the investor, it is not only the stick, but it is also the carrot. And from our side, it is the same. Sorry for this language, but I mean, the statistics and the number are speaking for itself. Uzbekistan is radically climbing up in the classical statistical indexes of investment climate. So congratulations on that. We are seeing first fruits. It is our project, and I would say that the strengthening of the investment climate and the direction which you in Uzbekistan are taking, yeah, this is clearly also one argument which in our internal discussion and our discussion with our partners is making the clear case for going to Uzbekistan and for investment in Uzbekistan. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Klaus, very impressive sort of intervention, really, I must say, and thank you very much for that. In fact, yeah, a lot of things that you've actually said there has, you know, instigated quite a few ideas, and I think we're going to have now, in fact, the Secretary General of the Energy Charter Secretariat follow up, in fact, on your intervention, and then we'll also have another presentation on you know, investment protection instruments. But I think I'm very impressed. You've showed a lot of knowledge on the Energy Charter Treaty. One little caveat here, though, is that well, the treaty actually was signed by the majority of the countries that are now its members in 1994 in Lisbon in December of that year, and it came into force after the 40th ratification in April '98. Uzbekistan was actually one of the founding countries that attended the Energy Charter Conference in The Hague in December '91. In fact, 91, and then was there in Lisbon. So it is, in fact, one of the founders of the treaty itself. You're perfectly right that it, as well as all of the, you know, contracting parties to the treaty, have obligations under the treaty to meet. But the good news is, as far as I'm aware, there's been no disputes, you know, with respect to Uzbekistan under the ECT in this last 25 plus years. And you mentioned mediation, so that shows also impressive understanding of the situation. Mediation is also a tool that we encourage, you know, as a kind of pre-arbitration instrument, which is much more or much less painful, let's say, you know, on parties. But nevertheless, as a confidence-building instrument, the treaty is second to none. So I can say that. But who I would like to say that in a more authoritative way is my senior colleague here, Ambassador Urban Rusnak, who is in fact our Secretary General. and someone perhaps that you may have met in some of your OECD and other sort of interactions. So Ambassador Rusnak has been Secretary General now for, he's nearing the latter part of his second term, in fact, 2 terms of 5 years each. So he's been at the helm of the organization. This is the top executive job in the organization for just about 10 years. He's one of the most experienced energy diplomats more broadly, I would say. He was also ambassador of Slovakia in Kiev, Ukraine during the times of the 2006 and 2009 Russia-Ukraine gas disputes. So a lot of good schooling, let's say, in the practical sphere of energy diplomacy for Ambassador back even before he joined the organization. But very warmly, Ambassador Rusnak, the floor is yours for your intervention, please.
Thank you very much, Marat. Thank you, Your Excellency, Ambassador Hakimov, dear friends and colleagues. First of all, I would like to apologize for being a little bit late for this gathering. But I was listening very carefully the intervention from the floor. I think, indeed, this is a groundbreaking investment, and I think that the reasons for those are clear to us and the Energy Charter Secretariat and the International Energy Charter Organization as such, but it's also probably clear for the investors, as we have heard, and also for the host country. But still, let me to sum up why we believe that this is a very significant investment, and not only by its size, but also by the place and the signal which is sending to the country, about the country, for the investors, and about the investors as well. I think that this investment, according to our view, is very important because it's helping country to achieve and to put Uzbekistan in a broader political and economical format. So this investment, we believe, that can actually contribute to achievements of the Paris Agreement goals, which was ratified by the Uzbekistan in 2018. It may sound strange that the gas power plant could follow us and could lead us to this goal, to the diminishing and to get to the zero emission at 50-50. But indeed, the place in the current system of the power supply and distribution, as it was mentioned by technical people before me, it's the confirmation of this fact. It also reflects the very practical and very useful nature of this investment. The countries from the region and Uzbekistan itself, for the long time, they have been accustomed to grants and subsidized investments. So this was something they call, well, I remember very well when I talked to one of the ministers from the region. He told me, so we are looking from the investments. And from what kind of investments I'm looking for, I'm asking the gentleman. Yes, from those international financial donors. I'm telling, okay, good, so those are not investments, private investments. Those are kind of support schemes and all kind of important instrument for your development, but those are not investments I refer to. So I'm referring to the foreign direct private investment. And the question which was asked before, why it takes so long time? Indeed, because the country was not ready yet to take this type of investment before. And it was not only the aging system, and we know that the country has the average year of the generation facilities is about 53 years. So a replacement of all of those units, old units, which has efficiency as big as 28%, which is a joke. I have seen this type of units in former Soviet Union. I mean, this is, you wouldn't believe this. This is like efficiency, like you have a boiler on your kitchen, like open flare. I mean, this is ridiculous. And more these type of power plants will come, faster Uzbekistan will reach the goals to reduce the emissions, but also a very pragmatic way. So just introducing, building and completing and start to generating the electricity on this power plant, on this single power plant, will free at as much as 1.1 billion of cubic meters of gas naturally, annually. So it means this gas could be either sold in the market or not spend. So it's a choice, and it also helps to the country to go to earn additional cash flow, additional benefits. Furthermore, this, as we have heard, this is the most up-to-date technology which is available. And this element of the transfer of technology and encouragement of innovation shouldn't be underestimated. This is absolutely key. So Energy Charter Treaty stands for this. So this is not only about the protection of investment, but this is also, and probably in the first place, about the transfer of technology, knowledge, and lessons learned. If we compare this technology which is going to be deployed in Uzbekistan from the perspective of the greenhouse gas emissions to the most up-to-date requirement which has been proposed by the European Union in the negotiation of the modernization of the Energy Charter Treaty, this technology will actually fit in. So even the most advanced so far, the public proposals or aligning the Energy Charter Treaty with the Paris Agreement will be met by this type of investment. The increased flexibility of the power system, and this is something which is very important if you could turn up and turn down the generation capacity on the natural gas, which is very convenient for this, would allow more deep and broader introduction of the intermittent energy sources, those renewable energy sources, wind and solar in the first place. And this all will increase the reliability of the power system. And we have been told already from the technical side, and I could completely agree on this, indeed. The stability and reliability, the robustness of the national grid is the paramount importance, not only for today, but especially if we are looking for the future development of the country. Phasing out obsolete plants and actually not replacing the coal power plant by the coal power plant, but the gas is an important step in this direction. And of course, there is always immediate benefit for the local residents, for the people, because it will reduce the pollution. It will reduce the burden and will make the air much more cleaner than it is today. I think this is a very clear example of cooperation in the energy sector between the East and West, between the private investors and national government. I was very pleased to listen to you, Alain, about your experience, your story. I could confess that yes, this is indeed the case in Uzbekistan. It's not the case in all countries, and I think that they're much more easygoing than some European members, and this I could confirm as well. However, the implementation of this particular project is not the final objective, but only the beginning of the modernization of the overall Uzbekistan power system. Despite the fact that today we are speaking about not about the renewable but low emission project, this fully complies with the national green economic energy strategy of Uzbekistan for period of 2019 to 2030. And more importantly, the roadmap of Uzbekistan towards zero carbon power sector until 2050, which was developed with the support of the EBRD and the government of Japan. And this was this very feasibility study, which showed to Uzbeks that while it's much more cheaper and sustainable in the long run not to rely anymore on the coal power plants, and to come and to build even if it may seem on the first reading that it's more expensive, to take the high tech, the best of the best, which is available today. But it will very well pay off in a short term and certainly in a medium and long term period. According to this roadmap, until 2030, Uzbekistan has to build 8 gigawatts of new renewables capacities and modernize 10 gigawatts of existing natural gas capacities, on which they have the average year, as I mentioned, more than 50 years. So those sooner we get rid of those obsolete plants, the better for everybody. Distinguished guests, we are witnessing the confirmation of the long-term Uzbekistan's ambition to achieve the zero carbon in the power sector by 2050. We are also witnessing the new investment of 1.2 billion US dollars. However, just to understand the scope of the challenge, I would like to bring two more figures. This investment is about 1.2 billion. According to our estimation, to achieve the clean energy transition, Uzbekistan will need about 94 billions of investment in the coming 30 years. According to my information, Uzbekistan has already attracted more than 2.5 billion USDs in new power projects, including 3 billions in combined gas cycles, turbine, and 2.2 in renewables, solar and wind projects. However, from my humble point of view, this is only the beginning. It should be only the beginning. This amount, and which are estimated to get the energy generation to the zero carbon by 2050, is really big. And there is a place for everybody. I would like to join the play for ambassador and from the other people, from the investors. Indeed, there is a great potential. It's more than potential, because we have already the first pilots coming in, landing in. So this is something which has to be, the message should pass, should go across from this press meeting to the other places. And the investors should listen to this. This is a huge opportunity, which will bring us all together closer to our goals. Everybody may have his own goal, but this is clearly a full overlap. A few words more about the roles, what the Energy Charter, how we are helping the countries to improve themselves. This improvement didn't come out of the blue. It was a joint effort of Uzbekistan officials, experts, and clear vision from the leadership, then followed by the expertise, local expertise. But also was a part and result of the very fruitful international cooperation through the Energy Charter and its secretary in Brussels. We are the only energy organization which covers all sorts of energy, of which Uzbekistan is a member. We are the only one which provides the equal footing for Europe and Central Asia, including Uzbekistan. And we are helping our members and helping them to learn to do things. There are the different way how you could transfer the technical expertise. You could hire a consultant, pay him hefty fees, and to sell him to the country, or to sit somewhere in Brussels, London, or Paris, to produce a report, which will then dusted on the shelves somewhere in the ministries. We have seen this so many times, and so much research has been wasted this way. So we opted for the different way. So we are inviting experts from the country to come to us, to come to work with us, to work with our experts in Brussels. And it's up to them to define, to sharpen their investment tools, to sharpen their thoughts, how to improve energy efficiency. It's not up to us here in Brussels to tell them, you should do this, you should do that, because the goals are touched. No, the goals are settled in Tashkent. The ways how to get there are globally known. So we are helping them to find the best way how to achieve their goals. And this is the primary role of the Energy Charter and Secretariat. We are very happy that we have seen in such a short period of time such a great improvement of the investment climate, on the mentality and openness in this very important Central Asian country, which is a leader by population, leader by the potential of the growth. And I would like just to, I mentioned already one project which is called the improvement of energy efficiency. So we done recently an energy efficiency study together with Uzbekistan experts, and it will be published later this year, I guess. We also are working with Tashkent on something we call the investment facilitation toolbox, to identify what are the best instruments for the countries to create an attractive environment for investors. And we are doing something, well, my colleagues will speak after me, Sasha Antonenko and Ishita Pant, about both. And I brought it with me here. We have something which is called the Energy Investment Risk Assessment Project. So we are assessing on a yearly basis the countries which are interested and Uzbekistan is obviously interested in. We are providing the recommendations. We are mapping and tracing those recommendation implementation, and year by year we are trying to help all member states and observers to improve their investment climate. And I'm proud to confess that yes, indeed, Uzbekistan is faring very well. So we could see that they're most in greens, so they're getting better, and there is improvement year to year. And I'm sure that this process, this practical results, the fruits that today announced investment is one of the practical fruits of all those improvements and efforts we did together with our Uzbek colleagues. I will stop here. So the book is on disposal for whoever is maybe interested in, and I'm sure that my colleagues will provide a more detailed information via Zoom soon. Thank you.
Secretary General Rusnak, thank you very much. And I must really say, everyone, just before we move on to our next speaker, that as a former professor, at the University of Kent here in Brussels, I learn so much every day, in these sort of sessions. Quite amazing because, in Klaus's intervention, there were some great remarks, but in Ambassador Rusnak's, just two very key points. He mentioned technology transfer and he mentioned East-West. Now, again, if we go back into the history, when this whole Energy Charter Treaty concept was conceived, its founding father is a man who is sadly no longer with us, but a former Prime Minister of the Netherlands, Ruud Lubbers. And Ruud Lubbers really who drove the initial, policy, let's say, provided the drivers for the Energy Charter concept. For him, this was really about energy cooperation. So cooperation de facto means investment and trade between the countries of sort of Western Europe, OECD countries, and the former Soviet Union. And the treaty was seen as a instrument that could inspire this East-West trade, investment, and ultimately technology transfer. That was nearly 30 years ago. Today, we see the relevance of what Ruud Lubbers tried to achieve in practice in the most unequivocal manner. We see an investment of 1 billion plus euros in Uzbekistan coming from the west to the east. So if Ruud Lubbers would have been alive today, I've met him several times, and I'm sure he would have just been, amazed at what we are actually seeing with the concept that he actually, I think, founded in many ways. So this is something I wanted to share with you, a thought which I think is really very significant. However, good news also, and also I picked this up from Klaus's message, that this could just be, this project could be the end of the beginning. 1 billion euros, a huge amount, but Ambassador Rusnak, toyed this figure of 94 billion to achieve kind of the energy transition, in a sense, in Uzbekistan, so zero carbon economy by, X date, whatever that's going to be. So this means, this project is really just the beginning. As grandiose as it is, we need to, again, put this into context. So I'm learning some really amazing things, and I think it's really good now that we're going to have Ali Marossi joining us, because we have heard a really profound intervention from the Secretary General of kind of an international treaty, an international agreement providing investment security, but of course each country has other investment protection instruments and mechanisms based on its own laws and contracts with foreign partners. So Ali Marossi is, in fact, we have another Secretary General now, Secretary General of the Hague Center for Law and Arbitration, which I believe is an arbitration institute in The Hague. And The Hague is, of course, a very important city, by the way, for the arbitration industry, in a sense, at an international level. So, Ali, it's a pleasure to have you with us from The Hague, joining via Zoom, not too far away from us. As they might say during Ramadan, ahlan wa sahlan. So, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And I may share my presentation. Okay, so thank you very much for the invitation, and I try to just have a very general overview of investment law and dispute settlement in Uzbekistan in less than 10 minutes. Then, of course, there are many experts in the audience, and also via the Zoom, if they have any question, we will be happy to address. And about the HCLA, it's, as you mentioned, it's mainly a legal and arbitration center. And the title is Director General. They mentioned the Secretary General. This is, okay, actually, so we already had some research project about Uzbekistan, and we conduct several research projects from legal and business point of view. It is why we call a kind of cooperation that we had, and thank you, Ambassador Hakimov, for his very great support about some issue from legal and business point of view. It is why I just touch a very general issue in this regard. So how I can go? Okay, so in here, for sure, all investors, when they want to enter to any kind of market, they always have some hesitation how to enter, whether or not to go there or not. That's the main question that they ask their advisor, either their legal advisor or business advisor. That is for sure that, especially when they want to enter to some kind of, we call emerging market like Uzbekistan. We, in our research that maybe one day we will publish some of them either via some kind of white paper or in some kind of article about Uzbekistan law and business. So we came up with this conclusion that that is an emerging market with very investment friendly environment that they are, you know, established. And one of the great speakers at the beginning mentioned that when you go in there, they always asking, so what can we do for you? That's a very good atmosphere in country like Uzbekistan. So in here, as you can see, so there are many measures that are adopted, especially there are members of ICSID, and there are also, they have several signed and implemented BIT, bilateral investment treaty, with many countries. It is why if, for instance, a Dutch company or German or whatever from all over the world, if they want to enter to Uzbekistan, many countries, they already have BIT. Apart from treaty chart, energy charter treaty, there are many other legal instruments, ICSID and BIT. It is why there is somehow guarantee for any kind of business to do business, either in energy sector, in other kind of sector. At the same time, as of January 2020, we have the law of Republic of Uzbekistan about the investment law. It is very modern and very up-to-date set of law that the people can rely on those. This is why in here, I just go through this in 5 or 6 minutes, just the main article that may be relevant to this meeting. As you can see in the Article 3 of that one, so any enterprise that have 50% of foreign investors, so they can enjoy all those protection under this law that came into existence as of January 2020. So this means 50% of any ownership, even a local company in Uzbekistan, if a foreigner just invests 50%, of course, the amount is something about the minimum 40 million Uzbek currency. It must be something about 30 or 40,000 euros. So in that case, a foreigner can very easily go there and just buy a local company with 50% ownership. Then that company can enjoy all those kind of protection. So there are many kind of guarantee, as you can see, non-discrimination and non-interventional by the government. And also, as you can see, even they assume foreigner, the same as Uzbek, without any kind of discrimination. But At the same time, as I highlighted in here, it's kind of exception in any kind of treaty, even in the US, in the European Union, and anywhere, that there are always some exception we call national security, or it's a kind of general recognized principle that there are always some exceptions that the government reserve for themselves just in case if there is any kind of threat to their national security, for sure they can adopt some other kind of measure. So to be honest, when we compare to other investment law in the region, I don't want to, for instance, compare to some Netherlands or Germany or Belgium. And especially this Article 19 of this law. So they somehow guarantee if there is any kind of change in law, for instance, tomorrow there is a new kind of set of government or parliament in Uzbekistan, if they change any kind of regulation, that regulation may somehow affect the interest of an investor who already invests in that country, this article can guarantee up to 10 years. Of course, there are some conditions that a company or a foreign investor must somehow take into consideration those conditions. So there is a kind of guarantee even against changing the law and regulation in the future. So an investor can rely in this article and invest and be in the safe side up to 10 years, of course, subject to some term and condition. And so Article 21 and 22 and others is the same, that they are not subject to any kind of nationalization or expropriation. And at the same time, Article 22 somehow mentioned that government may, for instance, if the foreigner need any kind of assistance, the government may even have some kind of monitoring on the project in order to protect and in order to secure foreign investor in that country. So this kind of monitoring is different than those kind of monitoring that we mentioned about national security or those kind of things. This monitoring is somehow assisting foreigners in order to avoid any kind of setback inside that country because of some maybe regulation or policy that, so this means the government can somehow be beside the foreign investor in order to move forward in their business. So there are many other kind of benefits that, of course, there is no time to go through all of those, Article 30, 31, 2, 3, 4, and all those, and Article 35 about the tax reduction and delay in the tax payment. Also, there are so many benefits for the foreigner. And there is actually one issue that some lawyers are always discussing about dispute settlement in Uzbekistan. First of all, as I mentioned, Uzbekistan is a member of EXIT, and also Uzbekistan has several BIT treaty with other countries. So there shouldn't be any kind of concern. But in accordance to this law, and there is some kind of confusion that whether or not a foreigner can directly go to arbitration or he or she must go before the court and then go to the arbitration. There are some confusion in Article 43, but the answer is, since the Uzbekistan government's member of EXIT and BIT, there shouldn't be so much concern about this article. Otherwise, this article is a little bit confusing, and I am sure in the future the Uzbek state will take care of this kind of confusion in order to avoid any kind of misunderstanding, as I can say. So there are members of New York Convention 1958 and also member of Ancestral, and there are several arbitration institutions there that the people and foreigners can either refer their case to them, or they can invoke other kind of arbitration in The Hague, in Paris, in New York, whenever and wherever they want. So I think it is a kind of general, because as I promised, I don't want to, it's more than 5 or 10 minutes. Then if you have any kind of question, we will be more than happy to address. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Shukran Gazilan, as you might say as well. and in fact, you still bring that question back to my mind of what Ambassador Rusnak tried to answer, which was still, why has this not happened before? Because, you know, Uzbekistan is a founding member of the ECT, as well as the relatively solid legal framework that you've described. I mean, in a summative way. We can discuss it in a lot more detail. So the question still persists in my mind. Ambassador Rusnak suggested that Uzbekistan was not ready in the past, but still I have some open questions on that. But I know there's also a number of distinguished colleagues in the virtual space. We're here in the physical space here in this hybrid event, but I know there's a number of esteemed colleagues that might like to come into the discussion before we have a little bit of a evaluation amongst the people here. I see former Commissioner Stefan Füle there. Stefan, you're very welcome to come in. I know you have recently been to Uzbekistan and interacting at a very high level there, right at the top. So perhaps I can invite you to share your thoughts on what has been said, as well as your own impressions based on recent visits. Please, Stefan Füle.
Many thanks, and dear ambassadors, dear friends and colleagues. It has been really great pleasure, I mean, to be able to participate in this event. There was an important question: why now and why not before? And those of us, I mean, who have a more regular dealing with Central Asia and Uzbekistan probably know the question, or the answer to these questions. This is because the reforms and real reforms have started. Uzbekistan under the Karimov was considered to be almost a police state, and although there has been some progress, there was a much to change and reform, modernize and democratize the country after the early 2016 presidential elections, when President Mirzai took over. The pace of reforms was unprecedented. In 2019, The Economist has marked Uzbekistan as the country of the year because of its reform record. I have a number of my former colleagues from the European Union telling me that they have never seen, I mean, the country changing just within such a short period of the time. What was important was also a change from the other side. And let me talk particularly about Brussels and the European Union, the new strategy about Central Asia, the focus on resilience, prosperity, regional cooperation, new offers like the GSP Plus. By the way, the Uzbekistan has very recently became a member, I think the number 9 member to benefit from this unique system of trade preferences. And that also shows about the commitment of Uzbekistan to the international legally binding conventions and commitments. The Enhanced Partnership and Cooperation Agreement is in a very advanced stage, and all we believe that it will be finalized before the end of this year. So that's probably the answer, why now. The second remark I would like to make is to congratulate Siemens. Congratulate Siemens on this one big project and number of other understanding and an MOU signed recently in Tashkent. It's extremely important, particularly now, to bring the private investment to the country as it tries to get out from this area of restrictions and pandemic. Uzbekistan is one of the few Central Asia countries, and not only Central Asia, but actually all over the world to mark the positive GDP growth last year. But that was, of course, expensive for the country. So, and it's such a kind of investment would be good for the country and would be a good signal for other investments. The timing, and that's my third remark, is also extremely important. The timing, good for the diversification of exports of Uzbekistan, because that has been challenged and pushed to the extreme as a result of pandemic. Second, and I mentioned it just a second ago, a strong signal to the investors, those who are sort of looking at the dramatically changing environment in Uzbekistan and asking these important questions. Is it working? Is it enforceable? Is it strong enough for now to come at this point of the time? But number three, it's also important because of the forthcoming presidential elections on the 24th of October. There is going to be a presidential elections. The president is running. According to the constitutions, it might be his second and the last term. And from what we know, talking to him, he is extremely committed to reforms. We got the sense that that's hardly any end of the reforms, approaching the end of his term, of the current term. He's determined, if he wins, to turn the first 100 days in office in another sort of wave of reforms. And I hope very much, despite a very positive assessment of working with the state, with the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Foreign Investments, and others, hopefully we will see also a very much improved administration in Uzbekistan, which still has a number of the signs of the former Soviet, post-Soviet bureaucracy. And the last point, it is going to be the reform, the investments, and all of that is going to be extremely important also in terms of this forthcoming elections, because what we sort of, the questions we're asking ourselves, how sustainable this reform process is. Is this reform process going to continue? Are going to be investors better protected, as we have just heard, or it's just the piece of the paper? And what we got from our recent discussions, I'm referring also to my colleagues, the former Chancellor Gusenbauer, former President Kwasniewski of Poland. Three of us are in the humble way assisting the President Mirziyoyev in modernizing his country. We have seen a quite clear commitment to strengthen the reform process and make sure to the international community and investors in particular that indeed the reforms are sustainable. And let me end with questions. What would be, if I may ask the Siemens representative, Dr. Hochmesser, who spoke earlier, what would be your main message to the investors community? The one we can build a bigger interest to invest in this country. And thank you very much for listening.
In fact, Stefan, as I bring Klaus into this discussion, I hope you're okay with me using first names, by the way. Maybe I'm assuming, but in fact, I'm glad you asked Klaus that question, because I also wanted to probe him a little bit, based on his experience, of course, on your earlier question, which was how sustainable are the reforms? Yeah, because I remember. In fact, I have this book in my library at home, a book called Uzbekistan on the Threshold of the 21st Century, which was published by Curzon in London in 1998. There was a presentation at Chatham House in London around 99, I think. The author was Islam Karimov, who you referred to in your very nice intervention. So in one way, if you're a historian of modern Uzbek independence, let's say, post-Soviet era development, you can argue that, the reforms were, in essence, in a form of overdrive. You can be a critique of the reforms in the Karimov era, of course, but still, nevertheless, the reforms were there. I met some of the reformers myself when I was a young, kind of consultant to the British Department of Trade Industry back in those days. But I'd be very interested in hearing this from Klaus, because at the end of the day, the elephant in the room here is that this is a private investment. This is a direct foreign private investment. Ambassador Rusnak talked about, the multinational development banks, the kind of the donors, and these are still, in essence, a driver for Uzbekistan's energy sector, particularly on the power side, and not so much in the, hydrocarbons. But Klaus, because you also said that, you're looking at Uzbekistan more broadly. This is not your only project. You've got this Egypt, Cairo to Tashkent sort of perspective. So I'd be also very interested in your thoughts as really, the player. You are the investor here, and Siemens, of course, it's a huge company, and it has a long track record of countries like Nigeria, not to mention the Russian Federation. So please, Klaus.
Yes. I have in mind that I think there are 5 or 6 minutes left to this event. So let me just make 2 or 3 brief statements. Now, I think any investor will look, number one, at the numbers of the business case, and number 2, also at the legal framework. This can be relatively easily be done from the desk at home, where I'm sitting. The third element is actually, the practical experience and the work in the country. It is no secret, and many people will know that Siemens and its partners, we have already been in discussions on some of these projects for a long time. For 3-4 years or so. Yeah, but I mean, this is also normal. But I just want to say that our CEO, who is a great friend even in these times of personal visits, and he has been in Uzbekistan, and he has achieved in these 2 or 3 days, he has achieved more than we have done on the telephone or on video conferences in 6 to 9 months. So I want to say, of course, you need to have some entrepreneurial spirit and some, I would say, boldness in a way. And large companies, multinational companies like ours, can do that better than smaller ones for obvious reasons. But I think it is also the willingness to engage with the local actors. And you're absolutely right. We certainly bring a lot of experiences from similar contexts in there, which also might not assess. Yeah, but I would say the fundamentals are strong. And then you need, etc., this kind of level to make the final step and cross the river in a way. Yeah, so that's for question number 1. And now we have the challenge of decarbonization, etc. So this is really a long-term approach, and that's our strategic, of course, aspect, together with our local partners, Stone City Energy, as a player, who can actually address
that they would like to raise. Please feel free if you'd like to ask any short questions on what I think has been some really remarkable exchange of ideas today.
Maybe online also.
Or maybe online if, yes, as Ambassador is guiding me along a little bit. If any colleagues online would like to raise any questions or make any short remarks, I see Axel Gotthal's there, the director of the Europe-Asia Institute, and other colleagues. I was going to bring in Ashita to talk about ERA, but I don't think she's with us. So any further here, there, everywhere? No? Okay, no worries, no worries. So, Alain, do you want to kind of, because we've really talked, this session's been great from my perspective, because, you know, we've talked about the actual projects, you know, the investments, the projects, and then we've talked about the, you know, the legal security, the treaties, the legal frameworks, which is really, you know, Klaus's two conditions for fulfilling a particular, you know, investor mindset towards a market. Would you like to kind of reflect on any final points and how you see things moving forward in the next 6 to 12 months?
I would say a lot is already said. I like only to underline what Ambassador said and also Klaus Achmaier. The windows of opportunity is there. And legal framework, even it can be improved, is already a good one. If you like to have idea and to improve it with the Uzbek, please go there and improve it with them there. But the business is done where the business is. If you like to do business with Uzbekistan, go to Uzbekistan, discuss with them, exchange your view, try to find a basis, the common view, and build on the common view. And then you will make it. Take it and do it.
Alain, that's a good message. I think, in fact, Alain's message is quite similar, and I'm going to wrap up here and give the floor to
Ambassador Hakimov for his farewell, but I think it's quite similar to a message that I delivered back in 1998 in London to a group of British companies which were looking at Central Asia. A lot of these were, you know, energy companies, kind of suppliers of equipment to the, you know, oil and gas sector was very important back in those days. It still is, of course, even in this era of energy transition. But I mean, the message that I had was very much what Alain has just said, which was this is a country where you can do business. Do not prejudge. It's very important to take off the goggles. You know, we look at the world as Europeans, as, you know, whatever we are. But I mean, I think, you know, when you go to Rome, do as the Romans in a sense, and take off the goggles. Do not prejudge, because this is a place where business can be done. I've certainly seen, you know, successful projects. And in a sense, you know, in the earlier years, what we have seen was a kind of east to east sort of form of investment flow and cooperation. You know, west to east, as kind of Ruud Lubbers would have hoped, I think we're starting to see now. And I really do hope that a great company such as Siemens, you know, with its amazing track record of investing around the world, will really realize this project together with, you know, Stone City, and demonstrate to the Brussels community, but not only to London, you know, to Amsterdam, to Luxembourg, to Frankfurt, to the finance, business and investment communities around Europe, that Uzbekistan is a place not only where you can do business, but where big projects can come on stream, and where, you know, where private investment, foreign investment, you know, east-west sort of projects combined can actually be realized successfully, you know, for the betterment of both parties. So I'm going to leave you now, everybody. Thank you very much. But now I want to hand over to my very good friend here, Dilior Hakimov, to wish you all a farewell. So please, Dilior, Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Dear Marat, dear Alain, dear everybody here on floor and house here in Brussels Press Club, and those who are online, I really appreciate this great time and opportunity to speak to you, to have this very open and friendly exchange of minds. Although we were online, for those who catch up a little bit later, I would highly recommend to visit again the Brussels Press Club online and to see on record. Because really today what we had is open conversation which is underlining why should anybody be interested in investing in Uzbekistan. And it's not only the scale of the project that we discussed today, but it's more about the aspirations of the people of Uzbekistan. It's more about the policies of our president, Shavkat Mirziyoyev, and basically that's all about the answer on the question why Stone City and Siemens are coming today. I'm not going to speak and to repeat because time is running up, but few major changes like introduction of PPP modality to in Uzbekistan legislative system, formation of the Ministry of Energy in Uzbekistan a couple years ago. So those unseen from outside but very important initiatives of our president brought the fruits, the results. I mean, the Stone Cities and the Siemens investment is one of the many other projects that we expecting. And as it was said by Secretary General Rusnak, it's the energy sector alone of Uzbekistan needs about 100 billion of US dollars to meet the goals that we subscribed up to 2030. So, but this is only one sector of our economy. And I'm very much optimistic, and please stay assured that our embassy is stands ready to facilitate, engage, and bridge all the necessary support between the potential investors and our government. Thank you once again, and Marat, thank you for this facilitation of this great event. Thank you, everybody.